Keep feeding, guys. This is Corey here with Toothless Reptiles in San Diego. The idea here is to do a vlog series, I guess you could call it, doing the entire Salvadorii breeding facility that we're building up here at actually at my house. So we're gonna try to take you through kind of step by step how we're doing everything, how the progress is going, kind of how everything is getting put together. A lot of stuff has already been done, but I'll walk you through kind of how we got to those points as well. I know a lot of the stuff we're doing isn't exactly transferable to your guys' projects because we're doing some stuff on such a big scale, but the basic stuff is very transferable. Kind of how we're gonna set up the misting systems, the ponds, the filtration system. You just kind of downsize those things as you need. So make sure to follow along. The plan for today is to just get all these ponds ready to go in. And so basically what happened with the ponds was these are all the ponds that I had at the old house, but the ponds are getting set up in a totally different way at the new place. So there's a lot of holes and everything in a lot of these ponds that aren't going to be used. Like this bottom huge pond is actually going to be let's see, there we go. I'm trying to figure out how to use this camera. I literally just bought all this stuff so we could do this little series. So basically this is going to be the big giant sump pond that's going at the end of the entire enclosure setup. That's going to be at the base of the river, so the river will actually flow into this pond. So all of this plumbing here is going to get 86'd. All that stuff's going to get capped off. All we're going to be running in the sump is a bottom drain that's going to have a large filter end on it, which you'll see over here. This is actually our huge evaporative cooler that's going in the building, and this will keep the building completely temperature controlled. We're going to try to keep the building around 82 degrees, and it'll also keep the humidity up, which is going to be nice. But that's all wired for 230 volt, which will be cool. So basically what we're going to end up with is this piece right here at the bottom of that pond. So we'll just come off the bottom with a 90, connect that straight into here, and that'll allow this to still pick up debris pretty close to the floor of the pond, but still allow it to like say if we get a bunch of sediment, it's still going to have enough flow up top of this cage to be able to pull in enough water not to rob any of the filter of a flow. If we would have done it the other way, like say just put this straight into the bottom, you can see we're going to be sucking from about 4 inches from the bottom of the pond. So we don't really want that. We'd rather have very minimal settlement at the bottom of the pond. That stuff just kind of accumulates over time and just kind of starts to grow a bunch of bacteria and kind of overwhelms the biofilters. But we're going to do the same concept on these two ponds as well, except on these two ponds we're gonna actually we'll have two 2-inch bottom drains, and then we'll have an outlet for the feed of the pump. Both of these ponds are going to be fed from the pump system, and then those will cascade into each other and out into the river. So, and all that stuff you'll be able to see how we end up putting all that stuff into the enclosures a little bit later on. But for right now, that's kind of the information we have. And what's really funny is I actually had to order some large 3-inch bottom drains because this pond I haven't used ever, because when I used the hole saw, when I first started doing these ponds probably 5 years ago, I put a hole saw in there and it was too big for the 2-inch, so I just kind of put that pond behind one of the cages and I've never messed with it since. So what I ended up doing was buying some super large fittings. So we ended up getting some super large 3-inch pond fittings, which are gigantic. And so the idea here is that I can make that hole bigger now and put this in there, so we don't waste that pond. Otherwise I have to buy new ones, which, I mean, in the grand scheme of things wouldn't be a huge deal, but I don't want to waste money on stuff like that if we don't have to. Plus, if you guys make that mistake, you guys should know that there's a fix for it. Also, we're going to be running this big 3-inch drain in the bottom of the larger pond, and I did that on purpose. And it's actually so when we go to dig out the area that that pond's gonna sit in, we can actually, it's actually a 2-inch PVC pipe that's the bottom intake for the pump, for the system. So we can basically slide that pond over that pipe and then get it all settled in, and then we can mark that pipe from the inside, cut it, and then go back and put in a reducer and just set the pond down on it. So we did that kind of on purpose, so I wouldn't have to pre-cut that pipe and end up with kind of a bunch of tension in the bottom. We want, if anything, we want some tension pulling the center of that pond down a little bit, so it gives it a nice cave, so everything will kind of flow into that filter area. So that's kind of what we're gonna end up doing on that setup. So we'll see how all that stuff goes when we end up getting there. We're also, those 2-inch outlets on the ponds that end up flowing into the other ponds, we use these. So these are basically just it's just a T with these cages on it. And that is just so you guys, and then this will flow into the other pond. So that's just so the lizards can't sit on the damn thing and block it and overflow the ponds. So and this thing rotates too, so it doesn't matter if it rotates because it'll always be flowing up to the highest point because it always flows. If you only had one side of this and it rotated 90 degrees and say, you know, that this side was out of the water, sorry, I'm getting used to this camera thing, this side was out of the water, it would overflow. But if you have two of them, it's just going to flow up from the bottom and back out. So that was the idea behind those. So we're gonna get the ponds ready to go in. I want to just get all the fittings out of them, and then get them siliconed up, and then let all that stuff dry so it's all nice and good. I also like to get all that little stuff taken care of. The building was actually supposed to start going up today, but we've had a bunch of rain delays, and it's pouring. It was pouring all last night. It's going to be raining scattered showers today as well as tomorrow. So the building's not going up till the 28th through that week. I think it's 28th, 29th, 30th, and 1st, I believe. I could be wrong. But just that week. So we're gonna get all that set up, everything we can set up for that. And then we also have all of this stuff, all of this wood that's going to be ending up going into the enclosures as well. Tons of oak. I have a bunch of driftwood over there as well, and should be rad when it's all done. We also have to make a big trip up to Castles for Reptiles, and that's up in the LA area, so I'm going to grab my buddy Moses. We're going to head up there and probably get an entire trailer full of driftwood for all of the enclosures. And we also have all of this stuff. So this is all manzanita that I pulled off the property when we did the foundation for the building that you can see back there. All of these trees were actually in the way because they ended up having to over excavate for the pad because they had to compaction test everything, all that good stuff. So but we're gonna end up planting these back into the enclosure. So it should be kind of a cool naturalistic setup. As a lot of you guys know, we are trying to plant full-size live trees back into the enclosures. So we actually have some other trees coming in as well as some Mediterranean palms. Once we get the ponds done, which will be today hopefully, and then tomorrow it's supposed to be scattered showers as well, but once that's done, I'm going to start pre-building all of the walls, hopefully in the reverse order that we need them to pull them into the building. So I'm going to pre-build everything. You guys will be with me for that, so I can kind of go over how I dimensioned everything and just kind of why I'm doing certain things a certain way. You want to make sure you plan a lot of this stuff out in advance. So it's all kind of, I don't know. The thing is, 99% of the stuff's in my head, so it should, I'm pretty good at planning stuff out. That's kind of what I do for a living. So we'll see. It's a lot of plan processes and all that good stuff. And I'll let you guys come along for the ride. As of right now, we're going to cut to a time lapse of me just kind of going through all the ponds, pulling out all the fittings, putting in new ones. We're going to silicone all those in and then plug them all. Not all of them, but most of them. We're going to plug most of them. One of the things to keep in mind is that on this pond and on these two smaller ponds, this is actually the outlet from the filter that fills the ponds, but it's down low on the pond. So this pond, the top of this pond, is actually 27 inches from the ground. So what that means is, in order to avoid a siphon effect, you need to make sure that the highest point on your filtration system is at least that high or higher. Otherwise, the water's gonna wanna siphon back out of the bottom of this pond and overflow the sump pond that's down at the end at ground level. So we're using the Aqua's Ultima 2000 pond filter, and forgive all this stuff because we're literally in construction, so a lot of stuff's just thrown around, kind of. It makes me feel super unprofessional. So this is the Aqua's Ultima 2000 pond filter. So this is actually around 25 inches from the top, from the ground. So this will be our high point on the filter system. So as long as the top level of our highest pond is that height or lower, we're not going to siphon all the water back out and flood the pond, the sump pond. So, because the water's not going to travel uphill, at least not, efficiently. Worst case scenario, we put an anti-siphon valve on those areas, but it shouldn't be an issue. And the other thing you can do is just move the outlet. So you basically just put a 90 down there on the bottom of the pond and run a pipe up, and then put another 90 at the top, so it's coming out from top higher. So it would basically only have the, you could only siphon back the volume that's in the piping, so it wouldn't overflow anything. But that's the idea behind that. I'll probably end up just moving those to the tops of the ponds just because. The only reason I wanted to keep them down low is to keep the water circulation going well on the bottom of the ponds, because the outlet is up top, so we're going to circulate from the bottom and work our way up, which would ultimately make for a cleaner pond down the line, because it'll keep everything flowing and nice, and it just means less high end and cleaner water for the animals. So pretty cool. Hopefully you guys enjoy the little series thing I'll be doing, and we'll keep going from there. Keep feeding. Check out the time lapse. This is a Toothless Reptiles top tip moment. So, if you're doing a pond install or any type of hole saw opening and you drilled the hole too small, there is a cool way that you can drill it bigger with your hole saw. Cut it open bigger, cut it bigger, because it's not a drill. Cut it bigger. That's not a huge pain in the ass. So normally, if you went to try to cut this hole larger, it's gonna skate all over because it doesn't have the guide anymore. That 1/4 inch drill bit in there is no longer guiding and holding the hole saw center. So you're basically gonna take the hole saw that you used to cut the original hole. In this case, I believe it's a 4 inch, and we want to cut this hole out to a 4.5 inch to accommodate our new 3 inch drain. What you do is you take the hole saw that you want the hole to be, you put that on first, and then you'll notice there's actually a couple threads that stick up out of the base where you would normally screw the hole saws on. You're going to take the hole saw for the hole size that it has now, and you're going to screw that onto here. So we can screw that onto there. So now we have the original hole saw hole size acting as a pilot, and then the outer diameter is the new hole size. So we can use that to drill out this to the proper size. pretty cool, and it doesn't move around. So I'll show you guys that on the time lapse probably, because I don't want to put the camera up. Or maybe I will try putting the camera up. Let's try that. Let's try putting the camera up. Hold on. Okay, let's give it a shot. So we're gonna open this hole up on the pond, and we got the original hole saw hole size here. So that should slide down into our hole nicely, and we'll put this, stack it basically on top of the new hole size, the wanted hole size, and we'll use that as the pilot. Make sure to turn your drill down to 1 so you don't snap your damn wrist off of your arm, because I have done it multiple times. And we'll crank this baby up, see how well it works. Oh, that's hard. Well, that worked awesome. Look at that. We got this cool little ring of plastic. So yeah, that worked really good. Cool. So that's a little trick on how to get this to the right size. And that'll go right in there. Pretty neat. Keep feeding. last few days, but I did get all the ponds plumbing in for the most part, except for the bottom drain on the larger pond. So now I just kind of wanted to go through with you the method to the madness and why I plumbed it this way and kind of how it will work when it's all set up. So basically, we are going to have the white PVC pipes that you see on both of these ponds are the inlets going into the ponds from the filter system. So that's how the entire pond system, river and downstream pond system, will all be being filled from these two ponds. And then the manifolds that I built right here, these are just two pond grates, 2-inch screw-on pond grates on both sides, and they're actually, you can get those from Tractor Supply and also most of the like aquatic stores, like Aquatic Warehouse we have down here in San Diego. They have all that stuff, but basically the water will be coming out the white PVC, filling this pond up, and this pond will be overflowing through this 2-inch pipe that goes out the back of the enclosure. And these keep it from being able to be clogged by the monitors, because they're going to want to climb on these things. So you want to make sure that they can't plug those up and overflow this pond. So this pond will overflow into this pond. So this will be the inlet into this pond from that pond. So that pond will overflow, come out here, flow into this pond, and this outlet is going to flow out into the river. And this also is the other outlet from the filter system. So the water will be going into these two ponds, filling these two ponds. These two ponds will be equalizing with one another with the tubing that's in there, and then these ponds will be overflowing into the river system that will run through the croc monitor enclosures and down into this pond, which is going to be buried in the big black dragons enclosure at the end of all of the enclosures. So that's kind of how it's supposed to work. That's how it's designed to work. And then the inlet for the filter, where it'll be scavenging water from, is going to be the bottom drain down here. I have another bottom drain from Honeywell coming in today, and that's pretty much how it'll work. So it's a real simple setup. It's just kind of, I don't know, when you do it like this, when the pump shuts off, these ponds will hold water. The river will actually hold water because this is going to be higher up, so it'll actually hold about 1.5 feet of water in the river, because there's no water flowing through it to overflow. And then this pond will hold water as well because it's buried in the ground and it's sumped from the bottom, so it's not going to siphon up past the ground level into the pump. So this will hold water as well. So every water vessel will hold plenty of water when the filter system is shut off. So the animals will always have good water to drink, but they will but you can obviously shut the filter and the water chillers off, because I generally only run those about 8 hours a day. But that's how it should work. So I don't know, should work cool. I mean, we'll try it. If it doesn't work right, then we'll change it, you know. But from what I've seen and what I've used at the other places, this should work pretty good. The biggest issue you're probably going to have with these ponds in particular is that you want to be able to keep the water circulating. So chances are what I'll end up doing is putting where basically you put, let's see if I can get it, you put a 45-degree angle on the end of that, and it'll blow the water down into the pond, and that will circulate the water and kind of churn the water up. And it'll oxygenate the water as well. As long as you're above the top of the water, just the water plowing down onto the surface will oxygenate the water as well. So we can end up putting fish and whatever we want in here. I mean, it's got an active biofilter. So that's pretty much it for all the pond stuff. And hopefully we're done with the rain for now, and it'll start to dry up towards the end of today and into tomorrow. So I'll start building walls tomorrow, and I'll bring you guys along for that. I'm waiting for an intro to come in. I had somebody graphic design an intro for us, so we'll see how all that plays out. But pretty cool. That's it for the ponds. They're ready to go in. Keep feeding.